This is BBC One. Now the news with Michelle Hussein.
Tony Blair flies into Iraq to give his support to the government there. He tells British troops their fight against insurgents is vital.
Every time you do that, you're striking a blow for values that matter very much to our people and to our future back home.
Detectives asked for help in tracing the last movements of the Suffolk murder victims. At a service this evening, the father of one of the women speaks of his loss.
She still loves us, and we still love her. We all will always have love for each other.
It's a big day for Little Britain as comedian Matt Lucas ties the knot. Good evening. Tony Blair's arrived in Israel tonight on the latest leg of his Middle East tour. Earlier, he made an unannounced visit to Baghdad and to British troops in southern Iraq. He told them their work was valuable for the future of our world and our security. Our political correspondent James Landale is travelling with the Prime Minister and sent this report from Iraq.
Every Christmas since Saddam was deposed, Tony Blair has come to southern Iraq to rally troops he sent in harm's way. Every year the situation appears to get worse, but every year the Prime Minister tells soldiers in Basra that they're taking part in a global struggle between tolerance and moderation and terrorism and sectarianism.
Every time you go out and you take on the people that want to hold this country back, this city back, this region back, our world back, every time you do that, you're striking a blow for values that matter very much to our people and to our future back home. So you're not just brave, what you're doing is good and right and important. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for it.
But just as important is this man, Nouri al-Maliki, the Iraqi Prime Minister who Mr. Blair met earlier. It is his success or failure that will shape the way the Prime Minister is viewed by history. After brief talks, Mr. Blair said he stood foursquare behind Mr. Maliki's administration, which he said must not be destroyed. British troops would remain till the job is done. And as for the daily bloodshed, well, Mr. Blair knew who to blame.
Who's creating the challenge? Who's creating the bloodshed? The people that are spilling the blood of the innocent in Iraq today are terrorists, are former supporters of Saddam, are everyone who doesn't want to see democracy in this country.
In Basra, Mr. Blair was briefed on the British forces' operation, gradually to hand control of the city to the Iraqi army and police. Operation Sinbad, as it's known, is going well, the Prime Minister said. But does that mean these troops can be confident of leaving soon? Well, not quite yet. But today, at least, that didn't seem to dent their enthusiasm for a man whose policy is keeping them away from their families for another year.
For many of these troops, Tony Blair's Christmas visits have become something of a tradition, but it's a tradition that is coming to an end. So the question is, of course, how many of these troops will still be here at this time next year, even when he's not? James Landale, BBC News, Basra.
Well, Tony Blair is now in Israel as part of that Middle East tour. He flew into Tel Aviv a few hours ago and is in Jerusalem tonight. Let's join James Landale now, who's there. James, he's flown it at a difficult time for the Palestinians, hasn't he?
Oh, he has indeed. I mean, today, just like recent days, has been a day of repeated clashes between supporters of Hamas and Fatah. There have been accusations of assassination attempts, there have been shootings. Although tonight there are reports that at least an attempt to try and broker some kind of agreement is out there, it's indeed a difficult time. And whenever you put that to the Prime Minister and say, what on earth can you achieve in this context? He says, look, that is exactly why people like him should be in this country, in this region, talking to the players, looking at the options, seeing what can be done. And that's why tomorrow, when the Prime Minister meets President Abbas, the Palestinian president, that's what he'll be doing. He'll be basically saying to him, what can we do to help? There'll be lots of talk of aid, money, training, things like that. No great breakthrough, but certainly another look at the options.
James, earlier, of course, he was in Iraq. What kind of a difference could he hope to make there?
Well, frankly, not a huge amount. On one level, his trip is now an annual thing, visiting the troops at Christmas. He's done it every year since Saddam was deposed. Obviously, this is going to be his last year as Prime Minister doing it. But secondly, and perhaps more importantly, he's there simply to show support for the Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki and his administration, which is effectively embattled now. Daily killings in Baghdad, kidnappings over the last 24 hours, and at the same time the diplomacy looking unsettling. There's a lot of speculation that perhaps the US and perhaps UK forces might pull out a little bit earlier than later. Essentially, the Prime Minister was saying, no, I stand full square behind you, and British troops will not come out until the job is done. It's not a phrase you hear often in Washington these days.
James Landell, thank you. More than 500 officers are now working to track down the man responsible for the 5 Suffolk murders. Today, detectives have questioned passengers at railway stations, including the station where Annalee Alderton was last seen alive, and they viewed thousands of hours of CCTV. Tonight, the father of another victim, Tanya Nicol, spoke about her at a local church. Alan Little is in Ipswich tonight for us. Alan.
Michelle, it is 1 week tonight since the discovery of the third of these 5 murders. 1 week tonight since the police understood that they were dealing not with a one-off double murder, but with a serial killer in their midst. It has also been a week in which the families of the 5 dead women, and indeed the wider community, have been struggling to come to terms with the enormity of what has happened. With the eyes of an entire nation intruding upon their private grief, the parents of Tanya Nicol mourn the loss of their daughter. Her mother seems lost, incredulous.
Tanya carried with her a gentleness and affection, a peaceful grace. When she spoke, it was with harmony and care.
2 weeks ago tonight, just after 6 p.m, another of the 5 dead women, Annalee Alderton, changed trains at this tiny, tucked-away railway junction. Tonight, at the same hour, police were questioning passengers at Manningtree Station in the hope of finding one who might have seen her. This was Annalee Alderton on December the 3rd. On December the 10th, she was found dead. What did she do? Where did she go in the 7 days in between? The release of these pictures yesterday has prompted around 60 calls from the public.
The public have responded positively to our appeals, and we are now confident that we can begin piecing together the jigsaw of Annalee's last movements. However, we still need to know where she was after the evening of December the 3rd, and we need to find the clothing she was wearing in the CCTV footage.
Gradually, the details of Annalee Alderton's last train journey are falling into place. This is what is now known. She boarded the 5:53 Colchester-bound train at Harwich, but she got off halfway at Manningtree shortly after 6:15. She waited half an hour before boarding another service from Manningtree to Ipswich. In the town's red light district, police work every night into the night. Paula Clennell carried on working here even after the first 2 murders had been discovered. Days later, she too was killed. The gaps in what the police know are huge. They don't know precisely when the women died or where they were killed.
I'm not frustrated. I would remind people that it was only this time last week that we had found Annalee's body. Gemma and Annette's bodies weren't found till Tuesday, and obviously that, it's a week since then, and we are making progress.
500 officers are now assigned to this case, most of them drawn from more than 30 police forces around the United Kingdom. The task is huge, and because he might kill again, it is urgent. But because they know so little about the circumstances in which the women were killed, they don't even know whether there was a murder weapon. They don't even have a cause of death for 3 of the 5 victims. And that makes them unusually dependent on appeals to the public, on information brought to them voluntarily by the public, and in particular from the kinds of groups that usually want nothing to do with the police, with drug dealers, with the clients of prostitutes in the red light district. They're having to reach out into these communities now and try to persuade those communities to start cooperating with them. And for the police here in Suffolk, that is uncharted territory. Michelle.
Alan, for now, thank you. Meanwhile, a government minister has said that in the wake of the Suffolk murders, it should be illegal for men to pay for sex. While curb crawling is illegal, paying for sex is not. But the Constitutional Affairs Minister, Harriet Harman, says that must now be changed. Police have warned Heather Mills-McCartney that they've received intelligence about a threat to her safety. Detectives say they've arranged for an immediate police response to be available to the estranged wife of Sir Paul McCartney in an emergency, but they do not believe she's in any imminent danger. Over the course of the last year, thousands of gay couples have entered into civil partnerships, far exceeding the government's original expectations. Today, the Little Britain star Matt Lucas was the latest celebrity to tie the knot with his long-term partner. Sally Nugent's report contains flash photography.
Enjoying their moment. Looking happy, if slightly nervous, the Little Britain star and his TV producer partner smile for the cameras. They said they were determined to keep this part of their day as private as possible. Neither responded to the barrage of questions. Since the change in the law a year ago, more than 15,500 couples have entered into civil partnerships. That's many more than the government expected. They'd predicted 22,000 by 2010. Of those, 9,000 are male couples, 6,000 are female. Among many who've taken the step are Ian Burford and his partner Alex Cannell.
Well, I am getting on, I suppose. I forget that.
They've been together for 43 years, and they're not surprised that there've been so many civil partnerships.
We knew that there was an enormous amount of people who weren't standing up and being counted for a whole variety of reasons, where they were being suppressed by laws and by different attitudes and by people's behaviour towards them.
In the world of celebrity partnerships, no expense is spared. Tonight, for the Little Britain star, a lavish fancy dress party with famous friends. Here's Barbara Windsor with Matt Lucas's comedy partner David Walliams, just recognisable in the yellow plastic glasses. By making their commitment today, Matt Lucas and Kevin McGee have become part of a growing trend. Sally Nugent, BBC News.
Now with news of English resistance in the Ashes Test and today's big football match in Scotland, here's Rob Bonnet. Rob.
Thanks, Michelle. Hello again. Well, we're just under 4 hours away from the start of the final day of the third Test, which appears likely to deliver an Australian win, and with it the loss of the Ashes that England recaptured only 15 months ago. Maybe it would have been different if England hadn't lost 2 late wickets today, including that of century maker Alistair Cook. Nick Brown reports now from Perth.
This was a day when Australia were expected to bag the Ashes. But someone forgot to tell Ian Bell. With Alistair Cook, he launched the most resolute of rearguard actions, taking England to lunch without the fall of a single wicket.
2 fabulous shots from Ian Bell in this over.
Cook will celebrate his 22nd birthday on Christmas Day.
Good shot.
This was an innings which belied his tender age. Bell was eventually out for a battling 87. Caught Justin Langer, bowled Shane Warne.
There you go.
A partnership of 170. After the fall of Paul Collingwood, Kevin Peterson's form had England fans daring to dream of a draw, possibly even a miraculous win.
He moves to 14.
More hope when Cook scored his 4th Test century.
That's the 100.
The youngest Englishman ever to achieve that feat.
And Alistair Cook can start to celebrate.
But with the light fading and his body wilting, he was finally out for 116. He batted the best part of 6 hours.
What a finish for Australia.
Night watchman Matthew Hoggard fell just 2 balls later.
Matthew Hoggard, what a turnaround.
Glenn McGrath's second late wicket, putting Australia on the brink. Up until the lights started to fade, this really was a terrific England fight back. But Australia need just 5 more wickets to regain the Ashes. They have a hand on the urn. Nick Bryan, BBC News, at the Wacker.
And you can see full highlights, incidentally, of Day 4 on BBC 2 at 11 o'clock this evening. And the best of the action also from today's English Premiership immediately after this programme. Leaders Manchester United and champions Chelsea were both playing. So here's that famous phrase again. If you don't want to know the results, look away now. In Scotland, meanwhile, a late Rangers equaliser brought them a point against Old Firm rivals Celtic at Ibrox. Still, the 1-1 draw leaves Celtic way out in front at the top of the Premier League, 14 points clear of Aberdeen and 16 ahead of third-place Rangers. Here's Adam Parsons.
The biggest club. An Old Firm game always has extra resonance, but while Celtic are flying at the moment, Rangers' form is frustratingly patchy. They should have taken the lead today, Barry Ferguson squandering an early opening. And Rangers felt even worse when Lee Naylor's cross bounced all the way to Thomas Gravesen, who emphatically put Celtic ahead.
Has fired Celtic in front.
Celtic should then have had a penalty when Neil Lennon was clearly fouled, but manager Gordon Strachan was left merely to berate the referee's silence. In adversity, Rangers poured forward. Both Dado Perso and Libor Sionko hit the post in a matter of a few moments. But the home team deserved an equaliser, and it came from Brahim Hamani in the dying minutes. It's not quite a renaissance, but it is a glimmer of hope for Rangers fans. Adam Parsons, BBC News.
Gloucester's hopes of reaching the quarter-finals of Rugby Union's Heineken Cup are still alive after a 31-14 win at Edinburgh. Gloucester ran in 4 tries altogether, including this from England international Mike Tindall, as Edinburgh's interest in the competition was effectively ended. Elsewhere, Sale beat Stade Francais and Borders lost at Biarritz. And in the final of Snooker's UK Championship in York, Peter Ebdon leads Stephen Hendry 8 frames to 5 and so needs just 2 more frames to be crowned champion. There we are, that's the sport.
Rob, thanks very much indeed. Time now to get the latest on the weather with Darren Bett. Hello, Darren.
Thanks very much indeed, Michelle. It's been a sunny weekend for most of us, but I think as we head into Monday, we'll see a lot of cloud around. It'll be rather grey and as a result quite cold too. The clouds coming in slowly from the west. Ahead of it we've got a frost in north-east Scotland, eastern England for a while, some mist and some fog here. The cloud will produce some rain and drizzle, but as it clears away from Northern Ireland, we run the risk of some icy patches and also some fog for the morning. The coldest weather overnight and first thing in the morning will be for the northeastern half of Scotland. A frost around here, -3 in Aberdeen. Perhaps escaping the frost in Glasgow, more cloud in the southwest. And we'll see more cloud working its way into northern England, limiting the frost and the fog. Cloudy start, I think, across the Midlands. East Anglia and perhaps the southeast will start off a bit misty and murky with some mist and fog. That will lift into a low cloud. Certainly a lot of low cloud towards the southwest of England. It's a bit milder here, but that's because we've got some rain. Some of it could be heavy first thing in the morning. Bit of rain across South Wales. North Wales, though, should be drying up. And it looks like it's going to be dry in Northern Ireland, but there will be some fog here, and some of that fog may well linger into the afternoon, but there may be a little bit of sunshine here and there. The sunniest skies, though, I think will be in Scotland after that frosty start. For England and Wales, it's going to be a bit of a struggle. I think there will be a lot of cloud. The damp and wet weather will clear away, so it should be a dry afternoon, but a cold day just about everywhere, typically 4 to 7 degrees. Not much changes really on Tuesday. Some mist and some fog, a lot of low cloud. It'll be dry, but once again, it's going to be a struggle with those temperatures. It looks like it's going to be cold. Michelle, back to you.
Darren, thanks very much indeed. And the main news tonight, Tony Blair's arrived in Israel on the latest leg of his Middle East tour. You can see more on that and all of today's stories on BBC News 24, including the latest on the police investigation in Suffolk. But that's it from all of us here for now. Good night.